All right. Welcome, everybody, to another episode. I'm here with Colleen.
Hello.
And we're here again with longtime dear friend, colleague. Colleen and Karen have been friends forever. I've known Karen forever. We're here again with Karen Hefner. Hi, Karen.
Good morning. How are you today?
We are doing good, and we are just so thrilled to be here with you in this form of circle. A lot of time in our circles, it's usually ceremony or classes in some way, and this is its own form of circle. So we're glad.
Or Egypt.
Or Egypt, yeah. The last time we had Karen on was about a year ago, and Colleen and Karen got to talk about their upcoming trip to Egypt, and they have been and come back, and sounds like it was an amazing time.
It really was, I have to say. For me, it was such a joy to have Colleen and Robin with me on that journey. Going to Egypt is always such a special, magical adventure, different every time. Very much created by the unique beings that go with, as well as I think, the way I look at it is the different portals that open, and partly due to the alchemy of the group and the energetic frequency that each person brings. So it was a great trip.
It was an extraordinary group of people and really nice and such varieties of skills. Well, skill isn't really the right word, but varieties of kind of different healing arts, as it turned out, although in many different modalities. So lots to talk about and share. And also it was nice because there were plenty of times of silence and not talking about it. So, which is always nice too. But of course, sailing down or floating down the Nile, extraordinary.
It really was, and it was I think the experiences of every person there. That people came from such diverse backgrounds and passions, and yet we're all together in a heart-to-heart connection with wanting to experience the magic. Yeah. And you live together in a very intimate way with that group of people for 12 days, and you get to know people in a different way. And one of the things that we really do there is allow that experience and expansion for each person, so that you can attempt to understand or absorb the place and the temples and what's happening, and have enough time to debrief and embody, and still it feels like it goes by really quickly, and then you're back here, and it's like a dream happened.
I would say thank you for saying that, because I would say that describes it so well, that a dream happened, and there's still the part of it that it's integrated. I was talking about it in our class yesterday, that how I had the extraordinary experience in the Great Pyramid, and in the ceremony that you guys created for us, and I was taken out into the universe, and I was really embodied in it. So it wasn't like I was watching myself do it. I was really merged. And so going through the universe and going through the stars and thinking I'm going out into the universe, but then I stopped and looked at the earth and just had that soul level love come in for the earth and for humanity. And what I was talking about yesterday is how we have those experiences, and then it's cellular now, but it also is like a dream. I'm like, I know I had the experience. I can feel the experience in my body. And then you come home and it's like that dream,
It really is. And I got goosebumps when you started talking about that. And part of me imagines that it's similar to what I've read about astronauts who go up and look down at the Earth, right? And have this overwhelming love for that big blue ball that, that we live on. And it's a pretty common experience for people to have the top of the pyramid just go away. And you're in that expanse, that expanded consciousness of the great mystery in space. I know it happened to me the first time I went, and that's been 10 years ago. And no accident that began me on the journey of teaching mystery school and channeling different teachings around sacred geometry. And all of that came from that first experience in the King's Chamber, that because we focus on sound, we focus on the power of sound. I believe that probably most of the temples and pyramids were built for that purpose. And so the broadcast that happens, we do bring that back. Our frequencies changed, and we come back and broadcast that here, which for me helps me understand why I go. I try not to get hung up on why too much in my life, but I really am consciously aware that it's not a small thing to take a group of people to Egypt. It's a huge carbon footprint. It's impactful to our Earth, and it's such a blessing and a gift, but also something that's rare. I mean, not everyone has the opportunity to do that for many reasons. And so I listen each time I go, and it's like, am I coming back? Am I bringing another group here? And I'm listening to feel that I am helping make a difference in the world, right? I'm here to be in service. And so am I facilitating change in a positive way? And that's what I listen for each time I go. And one of the positive changes is exactly what you just said. You are changed on a cellular level from having that experience and coming back home and bringing that gift. We're bringing the gift home with us. So yeah, I love the way you describe that.
I love the way you just described that.
I was going to ask, and I want to clarify when she said Robin, it's my dad, Robin. I'm little Robin. We have a big Robin in our family and life. And so that's who she was talking about. But I wanted to ask Karen if there's, with that dream, with that, what you were talking about with being with the top of the pyramid coming off, do you think that's because of the level of ceremony that's been placed in, or that's been facilitated in the King's Chamber or in the Great Pyramid, or do you think it has to do with the element of what the pyramid probably was versus, what the said things of what it was versus probably what it actually was?
Exactly. It's one of the reasons, of course, I've always been fascinated is that it is one of the absolute great mysteries of this place, of this dimension, of this earth. We cannot figure out how to recreate it. We don't have the technology. We don't understand what it was built for. But of course, people try and create a story around it because that's who we are as humans. And most of the stories that I believe in my experience tend to blow up some of the foundational stories that we are told and taught to believe. And I believe we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. And so when we go in there with an open heart, in my experience, with my journeys there, with my experiences in that chamber, I believe the pyramids on this planet, and there are many of them, and they are more and more becoming uncovered because of ice melting and because of our technology of getting to the bottom of the ocean and finding pyramids there. I believe they're broadcasting devices of some kind. It's what it feels like. And we work with that intention or possibility, so that when we take a group in there, we go in with the highest intention and frequencies of vibration, because we believe we can broadcast from there love and healing and the feeling that your mom had in that place. And that what better way to affect change on this planet? When I have had my experiences there, each time it's a bit different, but it does feel like it broadcasts our ceremony out, the frequency of vibration out. And I see in my mind's eye the connecting all over the earth of these different vortexes, of these different broadcasting towers, whatever they might be. And that it is intended to lift the frequency of vibration. And to me, that's my belief of what I think needs to happen for us to continue this human experiment in the way that it is now. It's how we can bring balance back to the planet of the divine masculine, divine feminine characteristics, how we can come back to the collective and realize that we're all interrelated, we need one another, we're all one. And so many people have these experiences that have gone with me that I've talked to, because that's my, where I get my information. And we can be in different temples, not just the King's Chamber, and the walls will kind of get wavy and go away. And you're in a different time frame. You're in a different reality, a different dimension. Sometimes it feels like you're just taken to an ancient Egypt place and you're there while these things are occurring. And the best way I can describe the way I visualize it or see it in my mind's eye is if you ever watched A Wrinkle in Time, the movie with Oprah Winfrey, and the way they do that wavy thing as they're going from reality to reality. That's the way it looks in the temples to me. In the Serapeum, in the temple of Osiris, I've watched those walls disappear. I've watched the hieroglyphs lift off the walls, and I've been able to understand what they say, which is fascinating to me, because they don't necessarily say what we think they do, right? Those hieroglyphs, in my experience, are alive, which is a basic shamanic tenet, everything's alive. But what they've taught me is that they have an essence like we do. I believe that we're souls having a human experience. They are a soul or an essence having a hieroglyphic experience. The elements just came into a session with a woman that I'm working with in Dubai, and they came in and reiterated to me that they take the form of earth, fire, water, air on this planet, in this dimension, but that they have also a soul or an essence that is much more and much bigger and much less limited than the form they take in this dimension. So it's a blending of all of those understandings that continues to take me back. And every time I think I know, I don't. And I love that. I can have a theory that'll just get blown right out of the water with another experience or another ceremony in these sacred places in the world. So I don't know if I answered your question, Robin, but
I don't remember what my question was.
Well, you answered more for me than I did. It reminds me of, because when we were in with Sekhmet, and here we had that opportunity to be right there with her, and I was so almost starstruck, maybe would be the right word, not knowing that's what I was feeling, but in retrospect. And there I was standing with her as a goddess and not having anything that I knew to ask for, to say, to think. And so I was kind of asking her about that. And she said, well, this is about you learning to ask the questions that you don't know to ask. And so,
Standing in
yeah,
front of her is remarkable. It is. The last time I stood in front of her, she said, "You are an experience having an experience." And that changed a lot of things for me. It really did. It was a piece of wisdom that I felt to every cell in my body. And she invariably winks at me when I'm there. I've stood in front of her now quite a few times, and she's very much alive. She is
very,
one of the only statues that's there, one of the only representations of the gods and goddesses and that energy that is in her original position, who has never been moved. And it's just a little tiny room in a little tiny building, almost forgotten in this massive Karnak complex of temples. And there was even talk about taking her to the gem, to the new Grand Egyptian Museum, which is supposed to be the, gem of the world as far as museums go. And they have gathered up a lot of artifacts from around the world, from other places that they were scattered, to bring that power back to Egypt. And there was talk about taking her out of that temple and putting her in the museum. And some of us were horrified. It's like, you can't do that. You can't do that. Because I often go into those museums and feel like I'm in a zoo, that they're not happy about where they've been relocated. They want to go back home. And there's been one thing after another that has kept that from happening. And I believe that is Sekhmet keeping that from happening. She's saying, no, this is where I live.
yeah. Well, what you were just talking about with the experience of broadcasting, that to me answers a question I didn't know to ask. That very much, and it's so interesting because for those of you listening, we didn't know this is where our conversation was going to go. And yesterday in one of our classes, the same thing happened where Egypt and this experience in the pyramid came in, but it also came in through the discussion that we were having about walking on Bandon Beach and the broadcast of the stones there, except I didn't use that word, but that's exactly what I was saying, is the stones on that beach to me broadcast the species that live here, and that we're part of that. And when I walk through those stones, that it's like an oracle, and I'm walking into this particular place. And then I went into this whole discussion about the experience in the Great Pyramid and what you just talked about with the broadcast, to me, explains it. It's like, I feel like that's what we do with our community. That's when we gather together and do this kind of work together. Our distance Reiki shares, your gatherings that you offer, the ceremonies that we do, that's what we're doing, is broadcasting our intention to live in these higher frequencies and to broadcast that love. And whether it's to anything externally, it's actually for us right here that we're co-creating. And that's what I feel like I do with Reiki, is it's a vehicle for that. It gives us access to those frequencies to broadcast into them and empower them, strengthen them, and make them, more physical. They actually exist at a greater level. And so
Absolutely. Yeah, that's beautiful. Beautifully said, and it brings so many things to my mind about the different practices that we teach, and beautiful way that you've taken, your training and who you are and helped weave that into Holy Fire 3 Reiki and the animal Reiki that you've come with. Your group has brought into life. Because I was just thinking how we could remotely travel back to the King's Chamber, because that's a practice that we know we can do. We're omnipresent beings. We can go back there at any time that we want. and how powerful that is, and how much more powerful our work is, and almost feels easier when there's a group. Even if it's two people, you've doubled the potential, you've doubled the frequencies of vibration. And that's power, beautiful, beautiful power to boost the broadcast, to reach more people, to affect more change, to assist in easing and bringing peace and a sense of balance to what's happening in our world. And I think that's one of the reasons that I came here now, was to really assist at that level. And I just keep being drawn back to the earth and back to the earth, as that power place, as bringing us back to our source. I mean, it is the source of the temple that we walk around in, is earth, air, fire, and water. It's borrowed materials. We're going to return them when we're done. And so it makes sense that a great deal of our healing and information is going to come from those oracles that are here, the Stone Nation. It's going to come from inside of our bodies. And it's just exciting to me, because it feels like, I guess it feels like greater progress is being made, because we're remembering at an exponentially faster level. The people I know that are coming into my circles are coming in open and ready and remembering. And there's not a lot of resistance. There's not a lot of doubting that we have to move through. We all have our own healing that's still going on and happening, for sure. But when it comes to the collective, when it comes to the power of that, I think people are really getting it. It's one of the reasons I started that membership circle. It's like, let's gather. Let's just gather together, because together we can make and impact a bigger change. So I love that. That's a place I love on the earth, as a matter of fact, is Bandon Beach. It's my favorite here in Oregon. So I'm assuming that's the one you're talking about.
Oh yes, walking through those stone pillars, and the oracle. They're on both sides of that beach.
Yeah, and I didn't put that together, but when I first moved to Oregon, it was in Southern Oregon, and Bandon was my absolute favorite place, and has never shifted. It's my favorite place in Oregon to go to the beach. Just like Morro Bay is my favorite place in California to go to the beach, with that massive stone and all the stones on the beach. And that makes all the sense in the world. Of course, they're oracles, right? I was getting fed
next
and didn't
time
even
you go,
know.
and then add the what I do is I activate the distance symbol, and that's that heart to heart, and all the spirits of the stones come out, the rocks, the faces, the different species of them, and the different beingness of the stones. Absolutely.
I have those experiences in Palm Springs when I'll go hiking out in the rocks in Palm Springs. I have that. It's like faces everywhere. They're so alive. And one of the things I had forgotten to mention to you that just dawned on me is that I'm doing more collaboration work, and I collaborated with Stacy Codino, the angelic shaman, on a fire walk and an initiation into sacred geometry with the archangels. But in September or October, we're looking at putting a trip together to Enchanted Rock in Texas. I'm not sure if you're aware of Enchanted Rock.
I saw it on your website, but I'm not familiar with it.
It's one of those remarkable magic places on the planet. You're in the hill country, and things look pretty flat. And then there's this massive dome of a stone sticking up out of the earth. And it's like, what in the world is that? And what we came to find out is that it was channeled by Archangel Metatron, that there are crystal skulls beneath that stone and temples beneath that stone, and that is a beacon of divine feminine energy that is attempting to help bring our earth back into balance. And so we went up there. You climb the side of this stone that's a gentle slope, but it's like you're on another planet. And it's smooth stone. And you get all the way to the top, and there are craters basically that have been worn away by water and wind, and trees growing out of the top of this rock. And so we went and asked permission and took quartz crystal and imbued them with Reiki and took them and placed them under this tree and asked to assist with the balance and the frequency of bringing Reiki love and energy and healing and angelic healing to the planet. And so we're looking at going and doing a trip, like a 4-day weekend, and going back to Texas and taking a group and doing work on Enchanted Rock. How fun will that be? Want to go?
So good. Yeah. Well, actually, I would, but I'm traveling to Japan during that time, teaching Reiki, speaking of portals. So,
You're hard to keep up with.
and the mountain and that same thing right in front of the temple. Well, there's the trees, the sacred trees there, but right in front of the main temple there is that there is a specific, and it's sacred geometry, and we should talk a little bit about that because we were going to do that. But and I wish I knew what the sacred geometry of it was. I should show you a picture so you can describe it. But it's absolutely a portal, and you stand there, and of course, people have been doing this for centuries and receiving, and that's the place that Usui Sensei received Reiki. So really, I love how our conversation is going to that. And before we move on, though, because of that topic, when we were in the Temple of Isis, and that was a phenomenal experience. Every one of us, and during it, it was like my legs were just pulled into the earth. I could not have moved an inch. I couldn't have lifted my feet. And we were in there, maybe an hour? And it was this incredible energy of being pulled into the earth. And then when we were sharing on the ship afterwards, everyone said that was their experience. And independently, we didn't know, it wasn't something that was said in the ceremony or knew about each other. And then, of course, went and got to watch the sunrise on the Nile.
Isn't that remarkable? The collective experience that you're having at the same time as your own individual experience, the both and of that. It so affirms our connection. It affirms our oneness and the knowingness that we have so many senses that we don't necessarily understand or know that we have, right? We're in a process of remembering at a pretty exponential rate. And so that ability to be one without having it said, it wasn't said in the ceremony, and that's what happened, is that everyone was having that experience. It's one of the reasons that we do the sharing, is to bring that forward. And that place, going in the dark through the reeds in the boat and, going onto this island where the temple of Isis is, the temple of Philae, is a remarkable experience in and of itself. And it also really represents to me in ordinary reality how much the Egyptian people have always understood the power that's there, whether they can put words to it or not, right? Because when they built the dam, the temple of Philae was underwater, completely submerged. But they knew that they had to change that paradigm. So they got divers and they went down and they numbered every single brick and every single stone and brought them up to the surface and rebuilt the temple of Philae on that island, exactly brick by brick, in the same direction, same directional powers, so that we could still go, so that we could still be in there. The importance of being able to be at the temple of Isis in her altar room is something that they knew they had to bring it back.
Well, it's also calling my attention, since our conversation has wound around the wisdom of the stones. And of course, they're in the temple. We are on stone. We went to the rocks to watch the sunrise over the Nile. I can still feel them, like they're, and then I'm not sure the name of the place, but we climbed afterwards.
Soheil Island. That was Soheil Island. That was where the kings, the ancient kings, believed was the source and the beginning of the Nile. And so when when there were droughts and the Nile was not running, because that was their whole life, was that river, they would go. And I call it king graffiti. They went and they put hieroglyphs all over these rocks, praying to the gods to bring the water back. And so we can actually climb up and be right there on those rocks and in those rocks and in those places where they were praying for the weather gods, basically to bring water back, to save their people.
I love it. I'm just, it's like all these connections are coming in. And for those of you listening, Karen and I realized we hadn't even talked after our trip. And so this is the first time we're actually talking about it. And it's making so many connections because, like we said at the very beginning, it's like a dream. So you know how in the dream you have the dream, but not necessarily like the functional daily touching memory of it. And so as we're talking about it and reconnecting with the stones, Robin's daughter Luna is a tremendous stone person. And we just did a podcast about stones with Nicholas Pearson. And so it's all, I'm like,
it's all together, isn't it? You know, and yeah, other than the debriefs we did on Zoom, we haven't talked. Mm-hmm. And what's fascinating to me too, as we're putting all of this together, is that I'm doing the Earth Heart, second annual Earth Heart here in less than 2 weeks. But I'm doing stone divination is one of the workshops that I'm doing.
Of course. The stones are saying, hey, we have something we want you guys to remember.
We surely do.
Well, and yeah, since you brought that up, now you have to talk about stone divination.
Well, the stones are the bones of the earth, right? There's even a song that we sing that has that line, and we know that they are billions of years old. They have, since I think I took my first breath, stones have been the thing on this earth for me that connects me to the great mystery, I guess. I didn't have those kind of words for it when I was a kid. But people used to hate to help me move because I had boxes either full of rocks or full of books. Either way, everything was really heavy, right? Because stones have been my friends since the very beginning. And I learned more and more about their wisdom. They're considered the wisdom keepers because they know things that we couldn't possibly know about this place, the earth, this dimension. They've witnessed things for billions of years, right? And so, shamanically speaking, all things are alive, all things have an intelligence, and we know from our work with not only shamanism and energy medicine, but Reiki, that we can, in fact, get information from these beings. And so, you know, it started with me being curious, picking up stones and thinking, how did this stone get here, right? Was it part of a mountain once? Was it, how in the world did this particular stone call my name sitting here in the dirt right here, whether you're in the city or in the country? we call them wild rocks, right? We're working with wild rocks. They're not the ones that have been tamed or polished or any of those things. These are just rocks, but they're fabulous keepers of wisdom. And so we bring ourselves into that listening place. Some people call it a journey state. We use guided meditation to get there. We open our senses, our knowingness, our intuition, our imagination, which are all keys and senses into the realms of knowingness and healing. And then we begin to speak to the stone. I mean, one of the first things we do is ask permission. Would it be okay if I pick you up and take you with me? And do you want to come back when I'm done? Is there an exchange that needs to be made? Or can I keep you and take you with me? These are really important things. If you can imagine, they have a family. They could have a stone family right there, right? And they want to go back. Water stones are different than earth stones, which are different than, desert stones are different than mountain stones. So when we open ourselves to that knowingness, then we can sit and hear in a different way. Sense. We'll just call it a sense, because people get it all different ways. So we take a wild rock that we have respectfully asked permission to use, and we allow ourselves to go into what we call wide-angle vision or owl vision, so that you're not focused like we do so much, but we're just letting things come rather than chasing after them. And we see what's on a particular side of that stone. And what image is there? What is it telling you? What is it called? What does it look like? What is it doing? And you start describing what you're sensing on this stone. And then you allow that to start telling you the story that this stone is trying to tell you. And we know energy follows intention, so we set an intention, maybe even ask a question. Maybe we have a specific question for this stone before we start. And we begin to describe and do all the things we do with the stone, and then we'll flip it over and see what's on the other side and do the same kind of practice. What is there? What do we see? What do we feel? What's it doing? What's it saying? If it could speak to us and tell us something. And then we take all that information into our hearts and discover the bigger meaning for us, right? The wisdom that is being imparted from this ancient one, or the healing, or the answer to our question. And so we will be doing that kind of stone divination work on the land during that ceremony. And you can do it in your day-to-day life. It is another way to focus and listen to what Spirit's trying to tell you, what that little voice in your heart is trying to say. It's a divination tool that is so completely natural. It has not been modified in any way to mean anything. Not that I don't also use rune stones and I Ching and wonderful, divination cards that I pull every day. But a stone is a wild rock. It's an ancient, billions of years old being that has something to say. So it's so much fun. It's one of my favorite activities from what I learned, 20 years ago in the beginnings of my shamanic training.
Same here. I remember Jan had me do stone grinding. It was one of the very first things that I did. And where I was to take a stone with another stone and rub the stone with it. And I was supposed to do it for like 4 hours. And this was at the very beginning. I had, I was like, what am I doing? Rubbing this stone. And my whole thought is all the things I'm not getting done because I'm rubbing this stone. And I'm thinking, this is like, I can't let anybody know I did this. This is how I spent my day. And of course, that was the lesson. And I did it. I think I lasted a couple of hours. I don't think I made all 4. But then I went to Ireland with Tom Cowan, Celtic shaman, on, we were learning fairy doctoring, we were learning Celtic shamanism, and we were up by the tomb of Queen Maeve, and he had us do stone circling and stone grinding, and it was raining and muddy, and the stones, I was doing it, and that time I was just so like, oh, so into it and loving it, and I was sprayed with mud and just in heaven. But also because it's another style of divination, it's another style of receiving the gifts, and how my perspective had changed from one experience to another. And of course, doing the stone divination, and again with really watching Robin's daughter, and her connection and natural connection with the stones, that childlike wonder of them that we get to experience in the young ones, in their experience of the stones. And, like our crystal grid, for instance, sometimes people talk about, oh, the kids came over and they picked up all my crystals. And I think, oh, I want them to, like get your good kid stuff in the middle of the crystals. So
Absolutely. They are. They're everything, really. I mean, they teach us about meditation. They teach us about listening. They teach us about magic and playfulness. So they have the power to open a portal. We use them, hit them together to create a rhythm. And in that rhythm, in that sound, because when you hit two stones together, it always sounds different depending upon the voice of that stone. And so that creates another kind of alchemical magic. And we'll be doing all of that. We'll go play in the woods and we're going to find stones. We'll stack them. We'll put them in the form of a medicine wheel. We'll put them in the form of Metatron's cube and open a portal and see what it says to us. And there's just no limit to what stones can do for us.
I just love that that's where our conversation went today. Who knew?
Me too.
We were starting out with sacred geometry. So we have to have you back for that, because I know we're on a time frame today, but we'll have to.
I would love to come back. Magic things happen for me when I sit and talk to you two. So I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Well, why don't you tell people how we didn't even get that far? Why don't you go ahead and tell people how to connect with you at Igniting Spirit and all the different information?
Okay, yes. I have a website, ignitingspirit.com. You can find really everything there. I do a monthly podcast, so there's a page with the monthly podcasts that are on Spotify and YouTube. I have all my classes are there, the different classes that I teach. I'll be posting here soon the next round of classes that will begin in the fall. I teach a series of sacred geometry classes, as well as medicine wheel. I teach about jumping mouse. I teach about archetypes and the hero's journey. Really fun ways to listen and discover more about yourself. I teach gifts of being human, which is a remembering of our birthright of journeying and understanding the power of energy and the power of our thoughts in our lives. I have a membership where we gather 3 times a month, different times of days and different days of the week. And there we explore whatever comes up. Everything from doing guided meditations or chakra work to healing the earth as a group and talking about the solstices and equinoxes, the phases of the moon. All kinds of fun things come up, kind of like having a podcast. It's like, what do we want to talk about today? And then following the medicine of the podcast, because it obviously had a different idea than we did. And I'm looking at developing some new offerings, a healing circle for people who are in the healing profession doing healing work so that we can get some mentoring and learn from one another. I'm going to South Africa in March of next year with an amazingly beautiful human, Jackie Gautier.
You're actually leading a trip.
Yes, leading a trip. And then going from
That
South Africa to Egypt.
Others can join you.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. You can find all the information and the itineraries and the costs. All of that is on my website. If you would like to go experience the magic of Egypt, I welcome you open arms. Stacy and I going to Texas, continuing with the group, the Earth Heart group, which is a group of 6 of us who do at this point 2 ceremonies a year, a summer ceremony and a winter ceremony. Lots of fire walks. Every chance I get when there's not a burn ban, you'll find me making a big fire. All of that information can be found. My Instagram is Igniting Spirit. My YouTube is Igniting Spirit Conversations with Community, where my podcasts are as well. And I would love to hear from you.
Oh, thank you so much, Karen. Robin.
Thank you.
And of course, you can find all of us on ReikiLifestyle.com and everything that we have going as well. And so thank you. And we will definitely have you back for sacred geometry because
I love that. See, I just, take you over to this distraction and then we can come back and talk about something again.
Well, the stone people clearly had something to say.
Yes.
So, because everything we talked about absolutely involves stones. From the Great Pyramid to Bandon Beach, all the way, everything.
Yep. Go out and play with rocks. Whoever can hear our voice, just go talk to rocks.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much, and we will talk soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Colleen. Thank you, Robin. I appreciate and love you both very much.
Yes, we love you too. Okay.